Is UX still the best line in Beyblade X? This is a question I've had for a while, but I wanted to wait until I had every single recent UX release to actually make the video on it. Also, as an immediate disclaimer to not waste anyone's time, this is not a competitive video. I don't really do competitive stuff. This is more so just based on their design, gimmicks, stuff like that. Though to give a quick answer, yes, it is still the best competitive line. It's still performing the best of any line. So there's a quick answer, but for a full-scale video on that, I'm not the one to do it. Anyway, UX is of course the unique line. Meant to have unique attributes, gimmicks, whatever. I think it's going at least decently relative to the rest of X. But of course we have had BX releases since the start of UX, also CX has come out. Have either of these lines actually exceeded it? I mean, CX has also had some gimmicks, so how does that hold up? Let's talk about it. So first I want to talk about the BX-UX divide. BX and UX are actually pretty similar. The main differences being the gear chip is stationary in UX bays, there's also no gear chip cover. UX bays also have more outer weight distribution, of course with the plastic prongs rather than metal, and UX has the potential to actually have gimmicks. Beyond that, they're pretty similar. I decided to choose Drawn Buster and Whale Wave as my kind of example days here. They're both similar. Drawn Buster has one main point for one big attack, while Whale Wave has 5 points for kind of downwards attacks. Different concepts, however, they kind of have similar ideas in how their parts amplify these ideas. 160 pairs for that one big hit, 60 just makes sense for it. Whereas 580, well, 5 signs, again, makes sense for Whale Wave, but it wants to be taller, so 80 makes sense. As for the bits, Excel, it was the first bit to have 16 gears, meaning it has a bigger impact on the extreme line. The extreme line's also for, one big hit, which pairs even more into Drawn Buster itself, thus amplifying the concept. Elevate is meant to kind of get off of the extreme line a little bit, give it a bit of an arc coming off of it to have a better down smash up attack, at least in theory. So again, the parts here actually do sort of amplify what these blades are meant to do, meaning that, well, yeah, BX and UX doesn't actually have that strong of a divide. Was there really a reason to make UX its own thing? I'm still not sure to this day. Now, if this was an evolution of BX, I think it'd be great, because, well, UX structurally just tends to be better than BX. But as concurrent lines, I don't know if this was necessary, but since July 2024, when BX had its last really big wave, going all the way through the end of regular BX, before Expand Blade comes out, there's only been 5 BX releases, so I guess UX kind of did take its place to some extent. So I guess the divide makes a little bit more sense now. And yeah, also I did want to make this video before Expand Blade, because this is going to be probably heavily changed once that stuff comes out, so this is all prior to that, of course. UX has a lot of similarities to BX, especially when you don't have proper gimmicks. So I guess we'll go ahead and go over these bays that are kind of similar, and are more so focused on the concept rather than any actual gimmick. So here are the 12 bays that don't really have any genuine gimmicks, but they all have their own concepts. So Drawn Buster we've already talked about. House Hammer doesn't really do anything in particular. Kinda has like a down smash idea, I guess. 370 kinda pairs with that as well. Hexa just exists, the space is just weird. Wizard Rod's wider than usual, also the outward weight distribution makes sense for stamina. 570 pairs with a disc ball. It's a ball bit. Works well enough for the concept. Shinobi Shadow doesn't do a whole lot either. It's supposed to have this whole like parrying thing, but it's way too late to actually pull it off. And then 180 and Metal Needle just feel awkward on this thing. Arrow Pegasus doesn't really need a big concept, it's just kind of a special bay. It just being a solid attack type with decent stamina is good enough. And also 370 Excel pairs fine with it. Maybe a better bit could have been chosen, but again, it's a special bay, whatever. Leon Crest is a wall. 760 reflects that. I don't know why they chose Gear Needle to give it more movement. Probably shouldn't have done that, but at least the blade and ratchet work well together. Phoenix Rudder is just weird. It's supposed to have a good shape for stamina, but also like counter attack things, kind of. It doesn't really work well. 970's fine. Glide, I guess, kinda works into the identity of that, being POM ball, but with 16 gears. I guess conceptually that makes sense, it's just kinda stupid. Ghost Circle is a very small, round blade, very light as well. 080 works. Gear Ball, I'm not sure of why would you want more movement on this thing, so it's also kinda awkward. Golem Rock is a pretty bulky defense type. 160 is a fair choice on this thing. Under Needle makes it very short. Pretty solid. Shark Scale is really good here, probably the best one of this bunch. The metal's quite low as it wants to really get some strong upper attacks. 450 helps it to do that, being very low as well. And then of course Underflat is also very, very low. So conceptually, great. Then we have a couple more special bays here with Wyvern Hover. It's a defense play that has like, I guess, like an upper counter attack thing going on. Should have just been an attack blade. 280 is awkward, 2 sides is fine, 80 is weird. I also think Gear Needle is just kind of weird in this thing, but whatever. And then Orochi Cluster, a very strong kind of oval attack blade. And 660 low flat is a solid enough attack combo that just works. It's aggressive, sure. So these 12 bays aren't all that. I mean, they're good, I like some of them, but they don't really warrant anything over BX in my opinion. I feel like they're kind of just carried by having better outward weight distribution, but again, they're still cool, I still like them. It's the other 8 that actually do a lot for this line in my opinion. So these 8 all have gimmicks. Silverwolf has the small free spinning ridge underneath the main part of the blade, plus 3D pairs fine with it, and free fall of course just gives it extra stamina, sure. Samurai Saber has these 2 weird like blades that just pop out when they want to. It's something. 270 works, level works, solid. Nightmail has the 3 metal balls, which also play into bounce spikes, shock absorption. It's pretty cool actually. 3D5 is kind of a weird choice though, but it's not horrible enough to ruin the bay or anything, so this one's actually really cool. Impact Drake has rubber, that's nice. Then it has 960 low rush, which is just a solid attack combo. Scorpio Spear is really cool, has the whole 3-blade, 6-blade mode shift, which changes on extreme dash, which again, very, very cool. 070 is solid for the thing. Also Zap, stays still when spinning normally, but when tilted, it can become more aggressive. Also 16 years, pairs very well into the blade in my opinion. Clock Mirage is a very weird one. It doesn't have an actual gimmick, but the bottom part of this bay is just so weird that I'm putting it here. It can only use simple ratchets, but it's also very, very large and round, very good for stamina. I think it's weird enough to qualify as a gimmick. Has 965 ball, makes sense. Definitely a unique blade, living up to the name of UX, I guess. Meteor Dragoon, like Impact Drake, has rubber, though this time it is left spin, cool. 370 and Jolt both work well for it, I guess. And then Mummy Curse has the 1 point that sticks out when it is initially spinning, and then it will kind of retract over time. This functions as kind of a counterattack for a defense type, which is a pretty cool idea. I think 755 and Wedge both work well on this thing. So there you go, the bays with gimmicks. They definitely vary, but it's always nice to just see moving parts or anything interesting on the blade. So I do like these more overall, but I guess when you look at the full combos, they aren't necessarily better or worse than the other 12. But having interesting stuff like this, I think, does mean something. Certainly more interesting than BX at bare minimum. Now let's talk about CX a little bit. So unlike with BX, CX didn't really replace UX. It never had like a massive falling off point or anything. UX stayed pretty prevalent. It was arguably even more prevalent later on in the year when you would have expected CX to be taking over, but no, UX got a lot of major releases at the end of the year. Anyway, how did it compare to CX? Was UX still more interesting, or did CX take over? Now there's a lot of ways to think about here, like Hell's Reaper. Turn was flippable, that's kinda cool, but doesn't do a whole lot in the grand scheme of things, as it is just an assist blade. Not really gonna get into Pegasus Blast because, well, Turbo's kinda interesting, but the blade itself is like nothing. I think both November base had some merit. Free on Wolf Hunt was arguably more interesting than Silverwolf, though Free Ball is definitely a lot better than Disc Ball. And Emperor Might was cool, had a metal lock chip just like Valkyrie Bolt, but then more, like having a bit of metal on the assist blade, heavy, and Operate had a mode change. That's pretty dynamic, and of course probably the best one here is Soul Eclipse. The assist blade dual is flippable. Also, Eclipse itself is flippable. That's pretty noteworthy and potentially the most unique gimmick in Beyblade X, to be honest. Plus 570 works well with it, and of course Transkick is at least some kind of mode change of sorts. So there's a good argument to really say that this is the most interesting bay in Beyblade X. However, this feels more like the exception than the rule. Like, the only other notably interesting bay in my opinion is really Emperor Might. Aside from that, UX kinda clears. I think Wolf Hunt is comparable to Silverwolf, specifically because of the bit choices. And after that, what else is there? Hell's Reaper or Valkyrie Bolt, which have very mild gimmicks, definitely not UX level. And of course Pegasus Blast with Turbo, but the Blades concept isn't really doing anything there. And beyond that, a lot of the other bays aren't really doing a whole lot. At most, they're maybe comparable to the 12 more standard UX bays, but even then, I feel like they're more comparable to older BX bays, not really doing a whole lot of anything. I do think CX has some really strong outliers, but overall I do think UX is still more interesting than CX. To be fair, it does have a whole year on it, but with Expandblade coming out, I think this is probably it for kind of the basic iterations of these lines before we get to kind of the revamp of them. So I think it's fair to say this right now. I wish I had something better to say, but yeah, UX is still the best line in Beyblade X. It's certainly the most dynamic, though BX isn't really trying to keep up with that. And CX made a solid push, but it definitely doesn't get past UX as a whole. Maybe if they kept trying to push gimmicks on assist blades, and just do more of them as a whole, then maybe it'd be different, but looking at something like Phoenix Flare, they really aren't. And now it's time for Expandblade, so that'll be an entirely different discussion, and we'll have to see what happens. But yeah, I think that's everything. The longer this video went on, the more I was thinking, is this even worth making? But I did make an extra BX video back in July, and then a CX one in December. And since Expandblade is going to change a lot of stuff, I figured, well, I at least gotta do another UX video before that happens, so here we are. Hopefully it was at least somewhat interesting, but yeah, it's the most dynamic line, so it is kind of just the best. Again, CX definitely made a respectable push, but UX just had a bit more time and was just made to do more, so it's the best. And like I said earlier, while this isn't taking competitive into account, it's certainly the best line there. But anyways, that's all for this video, so thanks for watching and bye-bye.